What's up, Inside Out? My name's Gabe, and I want to talk about this crazy, chaotic time that we've all been living in called the coronavirus. It's been absolutely bonkers. And for some of you, you've been feeling all kinds of different emotions. And one of those emotions, one of those feelings, I guarantee is disappointment. That's something that I've been feeling lately with a couple of things in life. I know some seniors have been feeling disappointment with not getting to walk the stage. There's just a lot of people, whether it's maybe not going to school, teachers not getting to go and teach. We're just filled with disappointment on a lot of different things. And today we're gonna actually get to talk a little bit about disappointment. Greg and I have brought a couple of dear friends of Inside Out and also with 242. They actually both have been heavily involved with 242. One of them is a sophomore and the other one is graduated Texas A&M just recently. And their names are Nola and Maddie. And so we're gonna bring them in today and have a conversation. Greg's gonna have a conversation with them just about disappointment and get down to some real life questions that maybe some of you have been asking yourself, have been asking other people, and you're just searching for clarity. And so today we hope that this conversation that we get to have about disappointment will help those of you that are wondering those things and are really feeling the raw emotion of disappointment. But before we get to that conversation, we actually got to follow Nola and Maddie around for the day and got to see a little bit of how life's been disappointing for them. So check that video out and then we'll see you afterwards for the conversation.
Yes, can I get a medium blackberry Sprite, a large water, a large Red Bull? Not Red Bull, not Red Bull. Not Red Bull, sorry. Big Red slush. An ice cream cone and a grilled cheese.
I don't know how, but apparently you can break it too. That is definitely broken.
See that?
Disappointing things all day.
What's up, Inside Out? Hey, my name's Greg, and we are here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about something that I feel like has been really hitting our entire world. I think, going through this crazy season with Corona and all this kind of stuff, it has drastically just shifted and impacted our life and our everyday routines. And there's been so much change and so much disappointment. And so today, that's really what we're going to hit on, is just disappointment. And so I think today, being able to talk a little bit more about that, we brought in some of our friends. And so this is Maddie and Nola, and they are absolutely incredible, and we love them. And so if you don't mind, just kind of sharing a little about yourself, either one.
Go for it. I'm Maddie Maxwell. I am from Cypress, Texas, and I've been attending Brazos for a couple months now, I think since February. And I am a freshman communications major, transferring to A&M from Glen in the fall.
Ooh.
Awesome, yeah.
I'm Nola. I'm from Lake Passes, Texas, little baby small town, middle of nowhere. I just graduated actually on Friday, so whoop, and I'll be moving to Dallas in August. I've been coming to Brazos for like 2 years, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay, yeah, no, that's really cool. And I think, what's really special about today is being able to get both of y'all where, one coming in as a freshman and then another one leaving, about to go into the real world, right? And so there's already a lot of change that has happened to y'all just in your lifetime, and just you have a different experience, a different outlook on some things. And so I guess just jumping right in, the first question that I really want to talk about is it okay to feel disappointed?
Yeah, definitely. I think like emotions are something we have. Sometimes we don't have control over the things we feel. But I think the biggest takeaway with disappointment and some negative feelings we have is what we do with them. Whether we let those feelings control our reality and control what we do. If we let the disappointment just drive us into lots of negativity, obviously we don't want that. And so I think the biggest thing is how we're going to take that disappointment that we feel and how we're going to let it change how we act and what we do, and if we're going to turn it into a positive or just let it run us into negativity.
Yeah, and kind of going off that is like, we tend to think that negative emotions are a bad thing and that like we're not called to have those. And so even as Christians, people hold us to the standard of like, we have it together. Like once you start following Jesus, once you have a relationship with him, you're not going to experience those things. And so I think sometimes when we do experience those things, we like think it's a bad thing and that we can't do it. But going off what Nola said is like, how do you respond to that? And because we have Jesus, we know that there's a way out of that and we don't have to sit in that. And so, no, it's definitely not a bad thing, but ultimately how you respond to it.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that, throughout life, we're always going to run into change. We're always going to run into disappointments, right? And we don't have control over that.
Yeah.
And so understanding of, okay, what in that moment, what do I have control over? And I think the thing that we always have control over is how we respond out of those things. So that's great. So whenever it comes to high school seniors, and I know that was pretty recent for you, right? A little bit longer for you and a lot longer for me, right? But whenever you're thinking back to like senior year and kind of putting yourself in that mindset again and trying to think about all the things that you got to experience one last time, right? So you got to experience prom and, your last game or your last trip with your friends or whatever, right? There's so many lasts.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to the seniors who missed out on a lot of their lasts?
Yeah, that's hard. Just because people look forward to those things for so long, since most people are little, like they are working towards this time of their life, and especially because it is their last, and like this is the last time that they're getting to see and be together with all their friends that they've grown up with, just because everyone's about to split and go to college. But know that it is okay to like be upset, and it is okay to wish that things happened that didn't. But ultimately, like, there is so much good that comes from that. And, like, high school is not supposed to be the best time of your life. And though you were looking forward to those things and though you wish that they would have happened, there's going to be so much in the future that's going to happen that, like, is going to be so worth going through, like, this time period that wouldn't have happened if they didn't.
Yeah, I kind of feel a little bit similarly to what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
Like, they should have had all these milestone lasts that they're not getting to experience. So this transition probably feels really weird. And like similarly for me, I just graduated. Like I didn't have graduation. I didn't have my last day of student teaching. Like these last things that should have happened. And so it's really hard whenever our expectations don't match up with what reality says or like what is happening. It's hard to feel like this is actually happening. And so I think in that to take advantage of this cool opportunity we have, like make those last experiences with your friends, like take these opportunities, even if it's just feels really disappointing, even if it feels like, well, this isn't happening. So how am I supposed to make the best of it? Like you go and make the best of it because this is the only time that you have to be here with these people. And so, yeah, it's disappointing and it's weird and it may feel like something's a little empty or something's not happening. But that's an okay feeling to have because this is such a weird and such a like weird transition. So.
Yeah, that's good. And I think, when, you're kind of going through it right now, right? I mean, just a few years later.
Yeah.
And so, you just said that you missed out on a lot of your lasts, right? So graduation and, all these things got canceled. And I bet that wasn't fun. That wasn't exciting, right? I mean, it's pretty disappointing. It's like you've worked so hard, And so what are some things that you have done to kind of replace those lasts? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Something that I've done is with my roommates and with my closest friends, just done some of our favorite things that we're like, we want to celebrate. Like this may feel like such a negative time, like such a hard situation, but like there's always something to celebrate. Like you still accomplished something, like what you've been working towards, you still did it, whether this big milestone happened to make it feel like it or not. And so like something that we did is we took a day and we did like a fancy dinner party where it was like, we could have gone out and celebrated with our families, like, and been like, wow, like, congratulations, and had a big dinner with our families, but we didn't get to. So we had one for ourselves, like, in our house, like, cooked dinner, dressed up, did these things, and just tried to make it feel as normal as possible. And just remembering that, like, what you're feeling, the people around you are probably feeling too. So, like, celebrate them and help them feel uplifted, and they'll probably do it in return too.
That's cool. That's good. So I know, and especially, all over social media and everything, people have been talking a lot about seniors. And I think, like, rightfully so, because like I said, there's so many things you're missing out on, right? And I think that they've been getting so much attention and so much focus, and nothing against seniors. But I think that we also have a bunch of underclassmen, right, that are also going through a lot of disappointing things as well. What about them? Like, should they just suck it up and be like, well, it's not about me, so I'll, whatever. Or like, are they in a position to be able to feel disappointed? And what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I felt that. And being a freshman is like, it was the first year of college for me too. And there were so many new things that I got to experience this year and plans that I had for second semester that didn't happen. And so hearing and having friends that are seniors in high school, but also having friends that are seniors in college and just feeling the weight of like what they're going through and things that they're not getting to experience, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, what I'm feeling like doesn't matter right now, because in a sense, they're more important during this time. And like every single person's feelings are valid. And like there were things that I was looking forward to that hold just as much weight and excitement that graduation or going to college or whatever that may be. I was still excited about those things too, and they didn't happen. And so just kind of like realizing that, yes, they're at a big milestone in their life, but like it doesn't downgrade or devalue anything that I'm going through or I was excited about either.
Yeah,
So,
it's still a loss. Either way, you're still losing things, and expectations aren't matching up with reality. And so those feelings are valid. They're coming from a real place. And I think it's like people need to feel them. They don't just need to stuff them back. Like feel them, process them, like work them out with your friends. Like it's definitely something that you don't have to feel ashamed in this time either for feeling disappointed.
Yeah, and you said something where it's like every person's feelings are valid. And I think that is so true. And I think a lot of people will try and make other people feel like, hey, like what you're feeling, you shouldn't be feeling that way, right? Like you need to fix that. And I think that is that's just tough, especially whenever we're in the middle of this global pandemic, right? Where everybody's feeling this in some form or fashion. And so I think that and there's been so many studies done during this time of just that anxiety and depression and all this kind of stuff is rising during this time, right? And so like when you're in the middle of feeling the weight of the world, feeling that disappointment, that loneliness, feeling that anxiety, like once you understand that it's happening, how do you escape it? Like what do you do?
Yeah, I think something in those moments, whenever I've started to feel really anxious or just really unsure and just really weighty, I have to nitpick through those thoughts in my brain and say, okay, what do I know is true and what do I know is not true? And so a lot of that goes back to scripture and what the Bible says and what I know to be truth of like Romans 8:28, that the Lord works all things for good, the good of those who love him. And so like these negative things are so valid and feel them, but also looking to the hope that like the Lord works all things for good. And so having to remind myself of the truth that I know to help alleviate some of that stress and some of that anxiety, and inviting people into it, like being honest with my community and with my friends and saying, hey, like this is something I'm struggling with and I cannot handle it on my own and I need to invite you into it so that way you can encourage me and you can help me in it. Because a lot of times I've found that for me, I've just tried to fight my own battles and fight it on my own, but there are moments where I cannot fight by myself. And it helps so much having other people tell you what you already know, like having people validate what you know and remind you of who you are and the goodness of the Lord and how he's faithful in all seasons. And just having that reminder from your people around you is also really helpful.
Yeah. For me, I just have had to remind myself, like, be honest with how you're feeling and like be upfront about like what is going through your mind and what is on your heart, because until you're able to see that, you can't work through that. And if you're not being honest with like what you're truly feeling and how like this is affecting you, then how are you supposed to navigate on like which way to go? And so going off like what Noel said is like being in the Word has been like so different during this time, but also like challenges you in such a new way because we're here and like it's happening and like all you can do is be present and know that like we can sit and dwell in what is happening and what's not happening, but it's here and it's not going away. So like what can we be doing during this time to better like ourselves and to better our relationship with the Lord? And so just being reminded of his promises and like what he says in scripture has been so nice and really needed during this time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's regardless of what's going on around us, like our why never changes. You know, our calling never changes, and I think it's super important to remind ourselves that regardless of the COVID-19, regardless of what's going on at home, regardless of how our grades were this past semester or things getting canceled, we're still called to love and serve people. And I think that a lot of times, at least for me, what's helped me during this time is just realigning my heart and realigning my eyes with what the Lord wants.
Yeah.
And man, I found myself multiple times during the past month or so, just feeling that weight. If I'm being honest, and that was something that like I've never really had to experience before,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of came out of the blue, and I was like, man, like I don't really know what's happening. Like I'm just anxious. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And just being in the Word and prayer and worship. And I know those are kind of like churchy things, right?
Yeah.
It's like, sure you're reading the Bible, are you doing that? But I think it's less about the things that we're doing and more about the why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just being able to realign our hearts with what God's calling us to do. Like that's when the peace starts coming in. So with so many things being taken away over the last 3 months and moving on, for the rest of the year, our summers have changed, even for us, like all of our camps have been canceled, all these things that we look forward to, it seems that it's just been taken away.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you move forward when so much has been lost?
I think that during this time, especially because so much has been taken away, it's been cool to like sit back and think, okay, is this where my hope was, or is this where I was lining my identity? Because when things are taken away and that depression, anxiety comes from that, it honestly makes you look back and be like, was I putting so much into this, into these like earthly things? Though like they are exciting and they are fun and like we are able to have fun things, like was I so invested in that it was taking time away from, my walk or my relationship with the Lord? And then taking that and being like, okay, if that's the case, how do I move forward? And that's with Jesus. And though like so much is still so unknown and we don't know what's going to happen, we do already know that hope like through him. And so it doesn't matter because he's already made a promise to us that's already been fulfilled.
That's good.
Yeah. I have to remind myself of times where I've seen the Lord be faithful when it felt hopeless, and remember that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that he is faithful then, he's faithful now, and that he will work these things for good, whether we see it in the moment or not. And so I think it's Psalm 143, there's a part where he says, like, I turn my eyes to your works, like I look back on all the things that you've done, and it makes his heart thirst for the Lord. And so that's been my biggest thing is like, okay, in all of this moving forward, like I want to look back and remember what the Lord has done and how he's been faithful and how he's worked these things for good, and then have faith in that and be hopeful in that in the midst of every hard season. So just remembering the Lord's faithfulness and that he's good regardless of the circumstance. Like he doesn't change based on our circumstances. So.
Yeah. And I feel like during this time that it is super important just to get back to like the basics, right? Get back to the very core things that we're supposed to be doing and the core things that drive us and the core things that we are called to do. Going back to a little bit of what I said earlier, just loving and serving people, like the why never changes. And I don't think there's been a better time to be able to do that when the whole world is being shut down, right? So with that, do y'all have any kind of final thoughts that you would want to end with?
I just think that this is so cool, just to look back and think, what a reminder that this life is not about us and like we're not on this earth for ourselves and for the things that we want. And it's cool because things have been taken away to be like, okay, these are things I'm expecting. These are things that I was wanting to happen. But even if they don't, and even though they have been taken away, like God is still good and like he's still able to work during this time. And though it looks so different for us, it doesn't look different for him because like Nola was saying earlier, he is the same God during this time, before this time, and after this time is over. And so just being reminded, like, we are not here for ourselves. Like, we are here for him, and like, how are we going to take this time and further that?
Yeah.
I think it's okay to struggle with this. This is not something that people are alone in, and I think that's something really cool about this time, just reminding like what a community we have around us, and that like people around us are struggling too, and they can sympathize and they can understand, and we can work together as community to encourage each other, inspire each other on, and remind each other of these things, like remind each other that the Lord is good, and just to be vulnerable with one another. So it's okay to struggle. It's okay to not have it all figured out at once, and that's what we're all doing. We're all trying to seek the Lord together and grow together. So
And though me and Nola are in two different places,
Yeah.
how cool that like we have that common need and hope in
Yeah.
Jesus. And like it doesn't matter whether she is entering the next milestone and getting, going to Dallas for her watermark program, or I'm about to enter my sophomore year, like our need for the same hope is the same. And it doesn't matter what our current circumstances are or what season we're in, which is like so cool.
Yeah. Well, I love it. Thank y'all so much for being willing to come in and share and just talk about this. Because I know like a lot of times it's really hard just to be open when you're talking about disappointments, because it's going to happen to everybody, right? But I think it's really easy to believe that we're the only one going through it. And you just said, like we're all going through this together. Like we're all in it, right? And we see so many shirts and so many slogans saying we're in this together, right?
Yeah.
And I think like I see that and I'm like, you know what, like that's good. I think whoever came up with that, probably didn't mean it on a deep spiritual level, but it like the need is still there. The need for Jesus is still there, and that is across the board. And so thank y'all so much. I loved it. I felt like I got a lot out of it, so I appreciate it. So that's all we have for today. Thank y'all so much. We love y'all, and we will see y'all soon.